Hello and welcome everybody to our VMware Cloud Management Dashboarding Extravaganza. I forget what we called it exactly. Dashboarding from soup to all, from nothing to everything. Either way, that's what we're going to be going on here. We are joined by the amazing Brock Peterson, who few can hold a candle to his dashboard capabilities. He's going to hate me for saying all these things, but regardless, I'm going to enjoy this as much as you will, because Brock does an amazing job of taking you from knowing nothing to knowing all of the things and being able to do all of the things. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and let's hand it over to Brock here for a moment.
Thank you,
and last thing, definitely take advantage of the Q&A and the chat. You know, if you have a solid, I want to know this question, ask in the Q&A. If you have a kind of side question, definitely engage in the chat. We'll be trying to respond to those things and, field some of them live over to Brock as well. But, this time is for you all to be able to benefit from and take advantage of this, amazing topic and subject. Sorry, go ahead, Brock.
Yeah, no, good call, Christopher. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? And see the prezo okay?
Looks good. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I'm just kind of going through the list of attendees, 32, 33. So Christopher or Dale, if you want to take folks off mute so they can just, maybe ask questions, make comments along the way. We certainly don't need to wait until the end for a formal Q&A to talk about any of this stuff. So that said, I recognize a bunch of names on the call. Hey, Bob. Hey, Carlos, Jason. So for those that I don't know, I am Brock Peterson. So I am formal title, Staff Cloud Solution Architect within the MCM, which is Multi-Cloud Management, CMBU, Cloud Management Business Unit, and then the MAMBG, which is our business group. So Christopher and I are peers. We are CMBU SEs, right? So SEs that cover what was formerly the vRealize suite of products and now is the Aria suite of products. So, today we're going to focus on dashboarding, near and dear to my heart. I love operations as a platform. I love all of its capabilities, and dashboards are really at the top of that list, right? Dashboards are very, very powerful construct within operations that allow us to publish data all sorts of different ways, whatever data you want. And to that end, we're going to talk about it. We're going to do a little bit of a demo, talk about kind of the constructs, all of that good stuff. But Christopher, anything you wanted to say kind of before we get started around your blog, your YouTube channel, any of that stuff?
I could, but I want to talk about your blog. If you have never been to brockpeterson.com, that's listed right there next to Brock's name, I highly encourage it, because it's a place that hey, you want that thing? Yeah, Brock wrote that over here in this blog post. Go read that. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. I also have a blog where I occasionally publish some stuff, and a YouTube channel where I occasionally publish some videos. So you can feel free to check those things out. I'll post a link in the chat so you can go and be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, awesome. All good stuff there. So let's dig in. We're going to talk a little bit about vRealize Cloud Management of yesterday, so kind of the old naming convention. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Aria Cloud Management today. So many of these services, products were renamed last year at VMworld. And, we brought some new services to market. But I wanted to kind of talk about the old nomenclature a little bit, just so everybody's on the same page, right? I'll still be on calls where folks talk about vRealize operations, me included. So I do have a cheat sheet that kind of does the mapping there. But a little bit of feedback there, Christopher. Is that me or?
It's all good. Muting
okay. Not sure what that was. Thank you. Yeah. So vRealize Cloud Management, what is it? What was it? And what is it today? So where we're going to talk today is really vRealize operations, kind of the dark blue layer here, right? So there's all sorts of capabilities that operations can do, but I want you to see kind of where it sits within the broader suite of things, right? So vRealize operations, as we knew it previously, was part of the vRealize suite. So vRealize Log Insight, vRealize Network Insight, vRealize True Visibility Suite, which is the old Blue Medora stuff. vRealize Automation, Cloud Health, which is another acquisition we made a few years ago. And then kind of buttressed up below is Tanzu Observability, or RAPM, right? all of these products have been rebranded to an Aria product or service, but this is where they were before, right? And some of this has just been done in product within, I think, the last release, right, Christopher? I think 8.12 is where we rebranded from vRealize Operations in product to VMware Aria Operations. So, just so folks are all on the same page, Aria Operations, vRealize Operations, same thing, same product, whether you're consuming it SaaS or you've deployed it on-prem. So what does that look like today, right? So last year at VMworld, or I should say VMware Explore, we announced a couple new services, or I should say 5 new services. And then we rebranded a few of our existing services or products. So last year at VMware Explore, we announced Hub and Graph, right? So Aria Hub is kind of the front end UI catalog of all things Aria, powered by Aria Graph, the at-scale data store, providing all the relationships, UIDs, GUIDs, things like that. And then up above that, we have 3 new services: migration, guardrails, and insights, right? Migration gives you a bit of visibility into, say, vSphere on-prem to VMC migrations today, ultimately any cloud to any cloud. Guardrails gives you the ability to kind of templatize security, policy management, things like that. Insights is still in beta, not a ton of visibility into that. But what we have below that, automation, operations, logs, those are rebrands, right? So vRealize Automation became Aria Automation. vRealize Operations became Aria Operations, and the like. So if you want, I do have a cheat sheet to kind of map all of the products and services from the old name to the new name, but this is where Aria Operations sits today within the broader kind of Aria Hub and Graph services suite, if you will. And then you'll notice down below that we have support for all of the VMware clouds, as well as the public cloud. So, I mean, we're not going to talk about the Hub and Graph services or any of the new services today, but I want you to know where operations kind of sat within that broader scope. So let's talk a little bit about operations and all of its constructs, all of its function. So if you remember back in the day, when it was vRealize Operations, you would log in, you go to homepage, and you'd have what we called the 4 pillars, right? And I think it was performance, capacity, compliance, and observability, something like that. So in 8.12, which is the latest version, we have gone to what we call a Launchpad, giving you those pillars as well as competencies into operations. And I've kind of summarized them here. Because there's so much that operations can do, right? I mean, at its core, it's a data analytics engine, capturing vSphere data from vCenters, capturing non-vSphere data from things like compute, network, storage, database, application with VRTVS management packs, mapping all of that data from vSphere constructs to non-vSphere constructs and presenting it back to you, the consumer, via dashboards or views or reports. But there's so much more it can do, right? So like I said, at its core, it's a data analytics engine. So what does that mean? I mean, what do we do with that data? How do we provide that back to users? So, kind of going back to the pillars of operations, the very first use case that most customers have is observability, monitoring, troubleshooting, right? And I see a bunch of my customers on the call, and we've gone through troubleshooting exercises with vRealize Operations, be it VMs or hosts or data stores or storage supporting data stores or what have you. And Operations provides all of the observability via the troubleshooting workbench or the observability workbench, as it were, via dashboards, what have you. And it does it a few different ways. Dashboards, views, and reports are the 3 main ways, and we're going to dig into dashboards here in a little bit, but I kind of want to talk to the overall pillars here for a bit. So below observability, monitoring, troubleshooting is capacity management, right sizing, and reclamation, right? So again, I'm eyeing a couple of my customers on the call that I know we've done right sizing and reclamation exercises with, right? So right sizing, the ability to determine which VMs are oversized, which VMs are undersized, and how to take action, right? You can make manual adjustments on that. You can make automated adjustments on that via Automation Central, which is one of the most powerful new kind of feature function adds in 8.4-ish. I think that came. We're at 8.12 today.
8.4, correct. Yeah.
8.4. Yeah, thank you. I mean, there's one new kind of highlight for me in every release, right? In 8.0, I think it was the Workbench. 8.4, it was Automation Central. Can't remember what it was in 8.6. 8.10, the UI changed a little bit. 8.12, there's a new Launchpad, multi-cloud overview, and there's kind of some cool new metric changes in there as well. And you see, kind of nuggets along the way, but that was it for me in 8.4.
Don't forget that the new metric search capability too in 8.12.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right? So, and we'll go over that here in a little bit, but in 8.12, we always had the ability to search for objects, right? Or object types. And in 8.12, we now can search for metrics, right? So say I want to look for, CPU consumed over 90% around every VM in my environment. It's kind of a way to do, real-time kind of ad hoc dashboarding. And I'll go over that here in a little bit, but kind of below capacity management and right sizing is one of the third pillars, or costing, right? So within the data analytics engine is a very powerful costing engine where we can do costing, we can do pricing, or the ability to kind of, uptick or use a rate card, as it were, to provide things like showback or chargeback. So if you want to show your consumers how much their VMs or workloads are actually costing, we can do that. And we have all sorts of dials that we can turn around that. So below the big three are some other kind of feature function adds in Aria Operations, the ability to alert and notify, right? So as everyone on the call is aware, there's dozens, if not hundreds, of alerts and symptoms that come out of the box in operations. And in 8.12, we've actually disabled 20 of those. I think we had some feedback from customers where they were saying, hey, look, these 20 alerts are pretty chatty. They're generating some noise. So we've disabled some of those in the policies. But as you know, alerts are self-contained, right? So they will sit in operations until you make notifications on them. And we can make all sorts of notifications, be it webhooks to Teams, be it direct incidents to things like ServiceNow, be it emails and everything in between. So the alerting and notification functionality is there. Dashboards, views, and reports is where we're going to focus the topic of today, but we can also do things like capacity planning via Automation Central. I'm looking at one of my customers on the call in specific, who I know is using Automation Central to do right sizing, to do snapshot deletion, to do VM reboots on schedules within maintenance windows. So tons of really good use cases there. Some of the cost drivers and rate cards kind of apply back to, costing and pricing. Compliance doesn't get quite as much attention as observability, capacity, and cost, but we do have the ability to activate compliance management packs and generate things like alerts around compliance capabilities. And then, of course, sustainability. So one of the principal TAMs at VMware did a project, I want to say 8.6 timeframe, Christopher, Varhees, around sustainability. So we have, energy consumption, sustainability metrics, carbon footprints within vRealize operations or Aria operations as well, generally manifest as dashboards. So with that, that's kind of, operations generally, but let's talk a little bit about dashboards, because that's why we're here, right? Dashboards are the pretty pictures. They get all the attention. This is where we can surface whatever data we want to the consumers that we want, right? So when I'm building dashboards, there's generally 4 or 5 considerations that I take in. One is the design, right? Do I want it to be kind of minimal? Do I want a really rich dashboard? Am I building it for management, or am I building it for DBAs or storage admins or what have you, right? So generally, I'll look at the design, talk about interaction, where I want to make placements, how I want it to flow. If you've done a vRealize or an Aria operations dashboard, you'll know real estate is very, very valuable, right? So you want to place your widgets properly, you want to size them accordingly, et cetera, which, pairs nicely with your audience. Who do you want that to be? we've built dashboards for users, right? Admins. We've built them for consumers, maybe application developers, what have you. We've built them for providers, meaning, vSphere admins. We've built them for executives, et cetera. And it really depends on who the audience is in terms of what you build, right? I mean, I've built dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of dashboards for executives that, we shy away from putting too many alerts on there or adjusting color schemes because we don't want to alert executives to things that may not be problems, right? So your audience is really key here. And then third, what are the widgets that we want to use? There are 44 widgets at this point, 45. I do know that product management is going through an exercise currently, kind of reconsidering some of those, redesigning some of those widgets, kind of expanding on some of the more often used widgets and maybe deprecating some of those that aren't. But widgets, views, and more are a definite consideration. And while there's 44 different widgets, I probably used a dozen of them. I will use a view widget, which is also a construct for a report, but it's the most powerful widget available in that you can do things like transformations, maximums, minimums, average, totals. You can do unit adjustments. You can do object type adjustments, et cetera. So we'll talk a little bit about widgets and views. Interaction, what it looks like. Do you want things to be self-providers? Do you want them to be self-contained? Do you want to move from, say, a widget to another dashboard, right? So we can jump from dashboard to dashboard as well. And then there's a really, really rich community kind of supporting and providing content out on VMware Code or the sample exchange. And we'll talk about that in here in a little bit. I think there's maybe 299, almost 300 dashboards up on code today. And this is really how many folks get started, right? Go out there, find something that you like, that resonates with you, download it, import it into your operations environment today, and then riff on it, right? Because inevitably you'll find something that you like, but maybe you don't love that widget, or you want to reconfigure this widget that way. Just clone the widget or clone the dashboard, make it your own. This is how I got started. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's a really, really nice way to also, contribite back, right? If you have a dashboard that you love, that you think others could use, post it up on VMware Code, right? I mean, it's just zips, JSONs, various things. Everything's free up there, not only from a VROPS dashboarding perspective, but you can contribute super metrics or views or VRA Cloud templates or VRLI content packs and the like. So the community is rich, and I think we're all richer for it.
And that's always been my philosophy on it is I'll talk to people who want to I want to create a dashboard that does this, 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 and this. I'm like, okay, I get that. And Brock's going to literally show you how you can create the thing you want from scratch. But 99% of the time, I'm like, what do you think about this dashboard? Like, that does what I want. I'm like, great. All the work's done. You just download it and consume it and then tweak it to whatever needs you want to at that point. Because as much as I like building stuff from scratch, I also like, taking stuff right off the shelf that I can take advantage of immediately.
Yeah,
Mainly
for sure.
It's your dashboards, to be honest, Brock. It's, virtualization troubleshooting, V5 and stuff like that. It's mainly your dashboards or dashboard created. But the point is, that's the route that I usually tend to go because you did all the work. Why not?
Yeah. It's also a way to learn, right? Like I think, back to Dale, who's also a peer of ours, he used to contribute dashboards that would have HTML in them or script calls or something. And I was like, ooh, that's cool, right? I had never thought of that. So, it's a way to kind of learn from others. We all get stuck maybe in ruts or whatnot. If, you build a dashboard, they're kind of all the same and you find new ways to do the same thing. So anyway, go out to VMware Code or the sample exchange and kind of have a look around. There's a ton of cool stuff out there.
There was a question that was asked of how do you import a dashboard? And I'm just going to I'm going to post a link to a video that I published some time ago on how to import dashboards. So I'll drop that in the chat so everyone else can take advantage of that also, in case you weren't familiar with the process to import.
Okay, great. Thank you. I can also kind of show that here in the demo. I do have
Oh, absolutely. Show us.
yeah,
Show us,
the
but
chat up. I don't have a Q&A, but generally they'll just be zip files or JSONs, and they're pretty easy to go into. Go to visualize, dashboards, manage, import. So I'll show you how to do it here in a little bit. But when I'm looking at kind of designing a dashboard, the first thing I consider is, do I want it to be minimal or do I want it to be maximal? Meaning, do I want it to be super simple? Right? Pick a VM, show me CPU usage over time. Great. Or do I want it to be maximal? Meaning, do I want it to have a lot of data? Do I want it to explore inventory? Do I want to see things like alerts? Do I want to have color schemes around things like health or connection states of ESXi hosts and the like? So, I think it really sort of depends on who the consumer is, but the more kind of mature you are in your operations journey, I think the more towards maximal you'll be here, right? Provide as much data on a single pane, a single source, whatever you're comfortable calling it, as you can, right? But you also want to be efficient. You don't want too much data, right? So, if you're a vSphere admin and you're looking for, hey, I want to know what versions of VM tools I have running. I want to know what my VMX distros look like and what my OS distros look like. Fine. We can give you all that in list form, in donut chart form, in bar chart form, and the like, but you want it to be efficient. You don't want too much noise because real estate is so valuable within operations. And then how do you want it to flow, right? Generally, you'll be flowing kind of top left to bottom right or top to bottom, right? So, oftentimes I will put inventories or lists or views at the top that allow you to select an object. So say, for example, you want to select a certain cluster and see all of the hosts that comprise it, the VMs that are in it, and the performance of those. I'll kind of drive the flow there, which transitions nicely into the layout. What do you want the layout to look like? Do you want it to be top to bottom? Do you want it to be left to right? Those are kind of the natural progressions within dashboards. And you can also use titles to help guide the user. So titles within operations are really, really valuable in that you can tell users what they're seeing as well as navigate, right? So say, for example, you're populating a widget based on a selection from a previous widget. You can tell them that within a title, and I'll show you how to do that. Color schemes and your audience, of course, are always really, really valuable. I mean, the color schemes of red, green, yellow are, it's sort of ubiquitous. You know what that means, right? Red is bad, green is good. So leverage those. And oftentimes I'll move away from the red, green, yellow scheme to things like blues or purples or what have you when I'm looking at properties, right? So if it's health that I'm looking at for a particular object, maybe I want to go to something like a blue scheme if I'm looking at ESXi versions or something like that. So really find what works for you and then find what works for your audience. So generally you'll have 4 groups of people, right? So executives, managers, ops, and admins. So executives are at the top because oftentimes I'm building dashboards for them, right? And there's a really nice way to share those if you're running Aria Operations on-prem. And that sharing capability is coming for Aria Operations SaaS. For those of you on the call that have been asking for it, we have been pushing and pushing and pushing the sharing capabilities with Aria Operations SaaS, and it is coming. So executives like dashboards because it's their single pane. It's their morning coffee dashboard. It's their single source, whatever you want to call it. It gives them visibility into their environment at a glance. Maybe it's their homepage rather than Google or something, but gives them exactly what they want at a glance and they can move on, right? So these are the dashboards that I build, maybe that don't show alerts or don't show, a ton of detail, but give general health of environment or general maybe capacity of clusters, things like that. Similar thing for managers, but generally they'll want a little bit more detail, right? They'll want to know which clusters are full, which ones aren't, which ESXi hosts need to be replaced, which ones don't, which VMs are hottest, which ones aren't. And then operations and admins get quite a bit more detailed, right? If you're an admin, generally, you know what you want, you know what the metrics mean, so we can give quite a bit more detail. Same sort of thing for operations, although operations dashboards tend to be a little bit more kind of alert focused or problem focused, right? Show me the problems, show me the alerts, tell me what to do. And then of course we can make notifications on those alerts. We can open ServiceNow incidents or alerts or events or anything in between. I'm kind of looking at the chat as we go here, Christopher. It's hard to ignore those. Good question.
No, absolutely. Kyle did have a question about URL sharing, but we'll kind of cover that as well. And I'm handling the question that's being asked in the chat right now. You continue.
Okay. All right, cool. So Abhishek just asked one about, limiting a group of people. Yes, you can limit those. And in 8.12, you now have the ability to share dashboards with edit capability. So if you recall previously, and this was a real annoyance for me, if you shared out a dashboard, it was no longer editable. Well, now it is. So when you share a dashboard, you can it kind of a chown or a chamad for dashboard sharing, if you will, right? So you can give groups certain edit capabilities so a shared dashboard can be edited. What was Kyle's question, Christopher?
Kyle had asked, is sharing coming without the need to log in like
Yes.
URL sharing on-prem, like for
Yep.
the cloud version of it?
Yep. It is, Kyle. So we were pushing on that for a long time. And the answer was no for a long time. And that has changed recently. So dashboard sharing without the need to authenticate is coming for Aria Operations SaaS. Not there today. Of course, July 2023 just dropped and it's not available, but it is coming. Yeah, super exciting. So let's talk a little bit about widgets. Like I said, there's 44, 45. They just added a logs widget into Aria Operations, which is a super cool new widget, by the way. I just kind of discovered it when I was in Aria Operations SaaS recently. But there's a few that I use in almost every dashboard. Not every dashboard, but almost. And oftentimes they're kind of ordered in order of importance. But the object list, the view, the scoreboard, and the heat map. So the object list widget is the one that I originally used in almost every dashboard. It allows you to pick objects, right? So pick a VM or pick a host and see all the VMs in it and what have you. I have since pivoted from object list to view widget because the view widget does the same thing, but much more. So the view widget allows you to list objects like you might do in an object list, but it also allows you to show different views, meaning pie charts, donut charts, bar charts. It also allows you to do things like trend lines and give, translations around objects, unit changes. It does everything an object list does and more. So I use views in at least 90, 95, if not more, percent of my dashboards. And then the scoreboard and the heat map, I also use because they're so powerful, right? So scoreboards allow you to show 3, 4, 5, up to 10 different metrics when you've selected an object, right? Or you can use it to show properties, but it allows you to show CPU usage, CPU contention, CPU ready, 6 different CPU metrics for a single VM on a single pane, for example. And then heat maps are just that, right? I think heat maps, you sort of fall into the camp that you either love them or you don't. I think they're powerful in that they can show you a lot of data and then they can show you your hotspots. Now, once you find those hotspots, you'll have to double click and kind of dig in a little bit, but heat maps are a way for an operations group to find the problematic VMs or hosts or clusters or whatever they may be, and then go from there. So we'll cover a few of these widgets as well as others. I do know that the product management team is focusing on roughly 20 of them in the coming releases, and some of them will be deprecated, but that'll be announced in product. Okay, interaction. What does that look like? The interaction flow changed in roughly, oh gosh, what was it? 7.0 timeframe. So if you recall back in the 6.x and 7.x timeframe, there was a kind of a panel over on the left that did all the interaction. So the UI change was a vast improvement, right? Super visual, allows you to see kind of what's pointed to what. So generally it'll be top to bottom, left to right, widget to widget. You can also go widget to dashboard, right? So you can launch, say, from a widget to another dashboard. So this is where I encourage folks to use things like titles, explore things like self providers and not self providers. So if you built dashboards, you know that some widgets are not self providers, meaning they're saying, say, showing a metric being provided from a previous widget. It's easier to show. So I'll show that here in a little bit. And then the community, right? So these are the two links that I shared earlier. So code.vmware.com and aria.vmware.com. If you go to code.vmware.com, you'll see something called the sample exchange. Click on that and it'll show you code snippets, dashboards, supermetrics, VMware Cloud templates, all of this stuff that VMware folks have contributed, partners have contributed, customers have contributed. Download them, make them your own. And then aria.vmware.com is kind of a sample exchange for all things Aria that used to be realized at VMware.com if you have some caching going on. So explore both of those. And that said, I want to jump into my lab and build a few of these. So while I do that, Christopher, anything that you wanted to highlight that I missed?
No, I think you just take us into the journey while we talk to all the people in chat. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Continue on.
I'm gonna share out Firefox. So let me know when you can see it.
Looks good.
Okay, cool. So this is Aria Operations 8.12. It's actually 8.12 on hotfix 2. So that just dropped last Sunday, by the way, if you are interested. And some of the stuff that we spoke about earlier around, kind of where vRealize Operations sits within the broader suite of things is laid out here within the Launchpad, right? And here are the pillars: observability, capacity, cost, compliance,
I want to throw one point out is everything. It's right now he's running an on-premises instance as opposed to the SaaS instance. Everything he's going to show you could do in the SaaS instance. It's just we don't have admin rights in the SaaS instance. So there you go. Is that
yeah
fair? Put that right, Brad?
Yep. Yeah, that's fair. And thank you. So you're right. What I'm showing today is on-prem. I could show this very same thing in a SaaS instance. Generally, Christopher and I and our peers won't have admin capabilities there, so we can't show everything. I want to show everything here, but the UIs are exactly the same. The code bases are exactly the same. Generally, the on-prem version is just going to be about roughly 6 months behind the SaaS version. So all the cloud development, or I should say all the development, is being done cloud first at this point. We just dropped Aria Operations SaaS July 2023 release. And in April, we dropped, I think, the 8.12 release for on-prem. So the next on-prem release will be October timeframe, and the next SaaS release will be roughly 3 months from now. So same code bases, same UI, some minor differences. SaaS, you can do data collection every 20 seconds for vSphere objects. I think you have some capabilities to integrate with Aria Operations for applications, some very minor differences. But the dashboard sharing is one of those differences today. And I'll go over that here in a little bit. But explore, if you're not at 8.12 yet, get there. The upgrade is well worth the squeeze. Launchpad is quite nice. The ability to look at multi-cloud overview. So exploring things like vCenters of vSphere on-prem, NPC or native public cloud, as well as VMware Cloud, is quite rich. And then you also have the ability to define a third tab, which is awesome. I've been begging for additional tabs here. They've given us a third tab. And this is what I tell folks to make kind of their homepage, right? So when you've created a dashboard that you know, that you love, that gives you exactly what you want, make it your homepage, and it'll be presented as your third tab here. And every time you log into operations, you can just jump to that tab, have a look at your environment. See, in this case, I'm using my environment overview v5, exploring kind of an inventory, what all of my alerts look like, ESXi hosts, states, VM tools, VMX, VMOS distros, as well as kind of ESXi hosts and VM details. And of course, anytime you want to kind of pop that out or maximize it, just click that double arrow top right. So that'll maximize it, that'll minimize it, and bring it back within dashboards. So I'm sure everybody's aware, all of the blades over on the left-hand side, go to visualize, go to dashboards to explore your dashboards. And there's a bunch of them out of the box, right? You just kind of go to all, and you can explore, all the capacity related dashboards, all of the performance related dashboards, or, even if you get lost anywhere therein, you can always go to the dashboard's homepage, and it'll kind of take you through, availability type dashboards, configuration type dashboards, inventory type dashboards, right? I oftentimes spend most of my time, in the drop down here, just because I know where things are. And you can see that, Dale has his own folder here, Christopher has his own folder here, et cetera. But I put all of kind of our custom stuff in the custom dashboards folder. And this is where I will build out things like overviews for customers, or, potentially, here's a SQL Server one that I've done for a VRTVS customer that was looking at database type information and whatnot. So a couple of things. So let's talk about sharing first. So sharing on-prem, you can do quite nicely, right? So just click that sharing icon top right. And it will provide a URL. You can copy that URL, IM it out, email it out, give it to whoever you want, and that person will be able to access this dashboard only, without authenticating. All they need is a browser. You can put an expiration on that, a day, a week, a month, what have you. You can also email this out. You can embed it as an iframe, potentially want to put it in Confluence, what have you. You can give it access to certain groups. And then, of course, you can actually do an export of the dashboard itself. But this is the functionality that Kyle was asking about earlier, right? So if you're using Aria Operations SaaS today, you'll notice that you don't have the ability to share this link because of, the authentication issues via SaaS, right? We can't just make this dashboard public to the public, that is. So we're working on doing that via the cloud proxy at this point. So more to come there. That's not available today, but it is coming. So when I go into dashboards, I mean, there's all sorts of things that I might look at, right? So let's just kind of go back to our main page here. So this is an overview V5 dashboard, right? Obviously there's V1 through 4, but this is one that I created for a certain customer that wanted visibility into kind of their vSphere layers, right? And by layers, I mean, let's start up top with data centers, kind of work your way down through clusters, hosts, and VMs. And they wanted to know things like, are my hosts healthy? Are they all connected? Are they responding? What's powered on? What's not powered on? What are the versions of my ESXi hosts, and what hardware are they running on? So we can give them all of that on a single pane with a single view, and all of the data is here, right? So say, for example, I want to look at, ESXi host versions, right? So there's all sorts of cool things you can do with donut charts, right? You kind of pick the slice and it'll show you the details, but let's just pop that out, make it bigger. So here are all of my ESXi host versions, right? 6.5 all the way down through 8.0. I can go ahead and select whatever versions or deselect whatever versions I want. And you can kind of see the dynamic capabilities of the chart itself. You can also click on the slice to see the actual hosts that are at that version, right? So all sorts of goodness there. And then anytime you click on a blue link, or a hyperlink, as I like to call it, it'll take you to the summary page for that object, be it a host, a data store, a VM, what have you. Anytime you get lost, you can always go back and click the home page to get to that home page, or visualize and go to dashboards over on the right-hand side, right? So, I mean, there's, I have dozens of these, and I can take you through all of them, but what I would rather do is just create one, right? So, and just to quickly answer the import question, you go to dashboards, go to manage, click the 3 dots and import. And then the import allows you to import a zip file, a pack, or a JSON file. So all those dashboards up on VMware Code, those will be zip files, they'll be JSONs, and then you can either rename it or overwrite the existing one. So that's how you import. You can only import one at a time. I hope someday we're able to import, dozens, because oftentimes I will include several, if not 10 or more views in a dashboard. And it's nice to be able to just kind of import all those views at once.
And you still have to import views separately, correct, Brock?
Correct, you do. Yeah. So dashboards and views are different things, but views are also widgets. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. It's a little confusing, but views are the most powerful widget for me. And you have to import those separately. So let's have a look. Let's go to create. So, like I said, we can be as complicated or as simple as we want. But, here's your canvas, right? So the canvas is up top. The dashboards are down below. You'll notice the little toggle here, by the way. So it's showing all the widgets here, and then you can toggle it to views to show all the views, right? So the list view, the summary view, trend, distribution, text. I use the list view all the time, distribution all the time to get, some of those pie charts and donut charts. But let's go with the very kind of minimalist dashboard that we can do, right? Canvas up top, drawer down below. What you do is just drag and drop, right? So say, for example, I'm just going to use the object list widget because it's the first one. And then I'm going to use metric picker because it's second. And I'm going to use metric chart because it's third, literally that. So what I want to do in this case is I want to show my list of VMs here. And then I want to see all the metrics for that VM. And then when I select a metric, I want to see what that metric looks like. So CPU usage, memory balloon, what have you. So how do I do that? So go into edit that first widget. And let's just say this is going to be VMs. Refresh content on, meaning if you're sitting there, it's going to refresh it. Cell provider, meaning it's providing data to itself. So I'm capturing all of the VMs that the vSphere adapter has collected from vCenter. Auto select first row, just to kind of make it easy. Output filter. So this is where I can say, what do I want to filter for? What do I want to see? Do I want to see hosts? Do I want to see clusters? Do I want to see SQL databases? Well, I said earlier, I wanted to see VMs. So let's go ahead and just select object types. Scroll. I have a lot of objects in my lab because I have all sorts of different VRTVS management packs here. Let's go down to virtual machines. Where are you? Right there. 705 virtual machines. And you can also add columns in, by the way, if you want, into the object list widget, which is pretty easy to do. So say, for example, if we're going to do VMs, I'm going to go ahead and grab vCenter and say, look at my VMs. And I don't know, maybe you want to see, what an OS is, or have that listed within your particular widget. I'll just go ahead and add that here. Click save. So now that first widget, just make it a little bit bigger. And a couple gotchas, I'm sure that the folks on the phone have had this happen before. The only way to resize a widget is bottom right. Can't do it on the left, can't do it in the middle, can't do it at top. And the only way to move it is by grabbing the toolbar. So if I grab it, I can move it around, resize it bottom right. So what do I have now? I have a list of my 705 VMs. Here's the object type. And then I also have a column with my OS. I have a bunch of noise here, right? A bunch of stuff I don't necessarily want. So I'm going to click that sideways hamburger at the bottom. I'm going to get rid of that. I call it the sideways hamburger. What do you call it, Christopher?
I've never thought about that before.
This little guy down here, I call it the sideways hamburger.
Sideways hamburger it is. Yeah.
Anyway, so what do we have now? So we have our list of VMs, right? I left adapter type turned on just for grins. And then I also have that additional property that I grabbed, right? Okay, sure, no problem. So now I said I wanted to see metric picker here, and then I wanted to see all the metrics for that VM. So what do? I do an interaction, and then whatever metric I choose, I want that to show in my metric chart. So all I did was I click, drag, go to hide interactions, select my VM, and now I have all the metrics for that VM, right? So, we capture hundreds and hundreds of metrics. They are enabled or disabled in your policies. Of course, you can turn those on, turn them off. You can create instances on them, what have you. But I've selected my VM. I see all of the metrics for it. So now if I want to see CPU usage for that VM, all I do is double click it and it shows on my metric chart. If I want to see CPU ready, it'll show within my metric chart. And there's different things that you can do in your chart, right? You can do split charts, you can stack them, right? So now I have two different metrics kind of on the same chart. And as you can see here, I'm just literally randomly clicking metrics here just so they get added. And then of course, within the metric chart, you can change date controls, right? So you can do dashboard time, which is highly recommended. This allows you to stay within, using the same time across the board. So say, for example, you had a scoreboard or a metric chart that allows you to use that same time window, be it 6 hours, 12 hours, or 24, kind of across the board. So this is, for me, about as easy as it gets, right? You have a 3-widget dashboard. You're using 2 interactions. Whatever one you select drives the other 2 widgets. You can always, of course, clear these just by doing a remove all there. So, Christopher, any questions, any comments on this one?
Oh, I'm wondering, I mean, while this is great, go back to show interactions. While this is great, what if I want to have, my metric picker interact with a different thing than metric chart, or my VM object list interact with something else instead of like straight line, straight line? How do I do that? I know the answer.
I'm not sure.
When you draw the line into multiple boxes, basically.
Multiple
widget interactions.
Yeah, if I want to go like that, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Yes. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can always go with multiple interactions, right? So you don't have to go one-to-one, one to another. In fact, most of my dashboards will have different interactions, like Christopher just said. So let's build a little bit more complicated one. We have, 12 minutes left. Okay. So let's go to create. Now we used object list in the first one, and I've been talking about the view widget.
Brock, there's one quick question that came in the chat. Just I wanted to field it to you verbally. Can we make it default to a predefined metric instead of having to pick the metric each time?
Yes. Yep. So and oftentimes that's what I'll use the scoreboard widget for. So let's do it. So previously I did object list. This time I'm going to use view. And now what is a view? Right? A view is a widget. A view is also a view. So within the dashboard canvas, if I want to edit that view, I just go into edit, turn on content, make it a self-provider. I know that this is going to be VMs. And then you can also give it input data. So this is where you might be able to say you wanted only views in a certain host or a certain custom group or what have you. This is where you can actually select that object. I'm just going to make this really easy and grab all the VMs. So I'm going to go vSphere World, and output data is your actual view. I know that I have a bunch of views called VM details. So I'm just going to go look at them, right? So here are all of my views called VM details. But what if I wanted to create one of those? Just click that add button. And that add button allows you to select your view type and then create it. So say I want a list view. I just click list. And I don't know, VMs for webinar settings. Go ahead and show. I'm just going to click show object creation date. And if I want to look for virtual machines, I'm going to grab them and I'm going to turn off vSphere World and say, for example, I want to show co-stop, demand, CPU usage. I'm just randomly clicking things here. I want to show memory balloon, memory consumed, usage, etc. Now you see the metrics and you see the label, the units, the sort order, transformation, and advanced settings over here. This is the power of views, right? So if I want, and you can move these around, by the way, I just clicked and dragged CPU usage up to the top. So in my view, if I want CPU usage to be sorted descending, I can do that. If I want to put, say, a color scheme around CPU usage, I can do that, right? So, and you see the preview source over here on the right-hand side. This is always previewing the work that you're doing, right? So you can see I went descending, right? Starting with this VM consuming 100% of its CPU, put a color scheme around it, 70, 80, 90. So now you can see this one's red, these are yellow, these are all green, et cetera. You get the point, right? And then transformations are another really, really powerful way to capture things like minimums or maximums or what have you. So say, for example, I wanted to So CPU usage here, it'll be just CPU usage point in time. Well, maybe I wanted CPU usage maximum over the last 6 months. Okay, so I grabbed that same metric. I'm going to do a transformation on it of maximum. And then I'm actually going to look at the time settings and say, give me the last 7 months. So now this CPU usage, I'm going to change the box label on it, say max CPU usage. Forgive any typos here. We're going fast. So now this max CPU usage will be the maximum CPU usage over the last 7 months. And you can see the metric is actually different, right? So point in time right now, 100%, max is 100%. That makes sense. Well, rubric-VA right now it's 69%. But the max over the last 7 months has actually been 100%. This is a good way to explore metrics when you're doing right sizing, right? Because point in time is just point in time, whereas historic gets you all the data. Point is, this is the power of views. So I'm going to kind of jump out there and just use one that I already have. So I'm going to grab VM details, view 12, and say auto select first row and save it. What this will do then is take that view and put it in the widget. Okay, so let's just give this the full screen. All right, so here are all my VMs. I have creation time. Is it idle? Is it not idle? What's the OS, vCPU, CPU usage, etc. So now if we want to drive additional metrics over time, we can use the metric chart like we spoke about earlier, but maybe we want to use specific metrics and see what those look like over time. So what I'm going to use is a scoreboard. I'm going to drive that scoreboard from my list of VMs. So what does that look like? Drag, drop, hide interactions. So what do I want to see in that scoreboard? Well, I want to see metrics for the VM, right? So go ahead and click edit, and I'll just say, and this is where I use titles to kind of show people. So scoreboard for selected VM. Forgive the typos, I'm not going to fix them. I'm going to say, I don't know, give it 4 box columns. I personally like opaque. You can explore the visual themes there. I want to see a sparkline. What does that sparkline show me the last 24 hours? So explore the visual themes that kind of work for you. But why I like opaque is that you have the ability to put a color scheme around it as well. That's not just symptom based. So the other really important input transformation in a scoreboard is, am I providing metrics on myself, a parent, or a child? So what this allows you to do is select a metric for a VM, or say, if you're selecting a host, well, then you can show, child metrics, for example. So VM metrics for that particular host. I'll show you what that means here in a little bit, but let me select those metrics. So when you go to output data, you'll go to the adapter of the object type you're looking for, go to virtual machine and select your metrics. So I don't know, I'm just going to grab random ones, grab some memory metrics. Here they are. You can see the color scheme is symptom based, meaning if I have an alert against this metric, it'll change the color of it. But maybe you don't want it to be symptom based. Maybe you want it to be custom. So CPU contention, I'm literally just picking arbitrary numbers here. So we've taken and put a yellow, orange, red scheme on that and save it. Excuse me. So is our dashboard working? Yep, it is. So I am literally picking VMs up top, and you can see the scoreboard for those VMs over time, right? So now you have CPU contention, CPU wait, CPU peak usage, and what that little dark background is the history of it. So if you double click on it, it'll show you a metric chart for it. But couple things I don't love here, right? Like I don't love the fact that we're in KB here. I also don't love, multiple digits here, and the fact that I don't see CPU contention here. So let's adjust it. Go to edit. I know we're approaching the top of the hour here, Christopher. I'll save 5 minutes. And we'll say, let's call this CPU contention update. What was the others? I don't think I wanted it. I wanted gigabytes there. Gigabytes there. Gigabytes here. Update. Save.
You don't want it in bytes, Brock?
I don't. No, I don't. Okay, so this is a little bit better, right? So now we have gigabytes across the board for memory. We know that this is CPU contention. Okay, I don't love that this one is missing CPU, right? I know it's CPU ready, but I want the user to know it's CPU ready. So I just jump back in, go to data, say CPU ready, update, save. All right, so this dashboard looks good. I'm just going to save it as new dashboard. You can name it whatever you want. And when you save a dashboard, you can always find it via manage or just search for it here, but it will always go basically at the bottom of your list, right? And then you can move it around later. So, I put everything in custom dashboards. So if I want to go to manage folders, I will just search for new here. There's new. Christopher, there's one that you were doing. So I want to put it in custom dashboards. I just drag it, put it in custom dashboards, save.
And you even have the option to favorite certain dashboards you like or pin dashboards over there on the left side bar as well.
Yep, you got it. So if you want to favorite it, go ahead and make it a favorite, and it now appears in your favorites. And you can always tell which one is your home page, by the way, with the little house next to it. So, I mean, this is just like tip of the iceberg, right? Like we could have one of these sessions every day for, the next 6 months. So Christopher, with that, we have 5 minutes left. What did I miss? What do you want to cover?
Well, let's see. Dale, Tom, any of your favorite pieces that you want to, I mean, you're hitting all the most important things that are always the most exciting. I mean, we could do this for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. So I do see BC asking a question. So BC, 20-second polls, I believe is vSphere VROP SaaS only.
Yep, I mentioned that was SaaS only, although there was a question of whether it is available on-prem, which I don't know.
It is not.
Yeah, I didn't believe it was available on-prem.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump into one of the Aria SaaS versions here to show you. Oh, RSA, of course. BC, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay. All right, cool. What other questions we have?
Yes, the session is recorded. And you will get
nice.
a copy of it after the event. So great question. I will click answer live for that one. Can you scope dashboards to custom environments, for example, application name?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So, dashboards, we can point it at whatever you want. I showed you vSphere World there earlier just because that's easiest and it's the biggest bucket. But if you want dashboards to look at only certain clusters or only certain hosts or only certain custom groups or various applications, you can.
Brock, could I create a dashboard that, I don't know, monitored my certificate expiration dates that have nothing to do with machines?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a couple out of the box. So the SDDC Health Management Pack, the most recent version of that, does get us some certificate management or certificate expiry. So let me just refresh here. And then there's also another solution using Telegraph and SSL, kind of remote open SSL commands that allow us to check certs on targets. So let's have a look, see if I can find one of those.
And there was a question that came in is, can I have mixed metrics in the same view, CPU and vSAN?
Yes.
And, there.
Yes.
I say yes, but also just wanted to say that out loud for everyone.
Yep. Yeah. So here, for example, is the SDDC cert monitoring dashboard. So if you have operations, I would encourage you to deploy this, right? It's a free management pack. Just go to the Solution Exchange and get it. But it will show cert expiry. So you see mine for my vCenters here, but ESXi, NSX, NSXT, etc. Additionally, there is a really cool solution. Let's see if I have this in my lab. A really cool solution from a VMware professional services engineer named Thomas Copton that leverages Telegraph and does cert expiries. Yep, I think I do. Here it is.
And I'll say while that's loading there or not loading, The
Yes,
work that Dale
not
had done
loading.
around exposing RB Tools data directly inside of VROPS here.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah, that's a really cool use case as well. So forgive me, this is my lab, but you can do SSL cert checks remotely, and we're just doing basically some get SSL, open SSL commands against targets, and it'll give you those dates. I just I don't have it configured here.
And you got about 10 seconds. Anything else? You
Yeah, so just quickly back to the 20-second polls. If you do go into Aria Operations SaaS and go ahead and look at one of those, this is where you'll be able to enable real-time monitoring. So BC, this is what I think you were talking about. So you had the ability to
Yeah.
do 20-second polls on vSphere objects. It is available, but as you see, this is SaaS only at this point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's something that I'll probably need to talk with around the team, to see if it's something, because yeah, big time. It'll definitely help.
Yeah.
As far as troubleshooting and all that stuff as well, it will definitely help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll continue to push for it. I actually thought it was coming on-prem in 8.12, but it didn't. So I'll follow up on that.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
I hope you
So-
guys all enjoyed this session. Brock, you did an amazing job as always, and I'm glad everyone was able to be here and learn from Brock as well.
Yeah, thanks, Christopher. That was really fun. I mean, we went fast because there's so much to cover, but I'd be happy to have, one-off sessions or additional sessions, or, meet with customers directly, what have you. So thanks for the time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.